The smoke alarm in the East Wing wasn't supposed to go off. Staff Sergeant David Mitchell had been on duty at Buckingham Palace for 8 years, and in that time, he'd learned every quirk of the building's ancient fire detection system. The East Wing alarm was sensitive. Too sensitive, according to maintenance. It went off when someone burned toast in the staff kitchen. It went off when the summer sun hit the windows at just the right angle. But it had never gone off at 3 in the morning. Mitchell checked his watch. 3:17 a.m. to be exact. The palace was supposed to be quiet at this hour. Most of the royal family was away. King Charles at Balmoral, William and Kate at their country estate. Only Queen Camilla had remained in London, citing some charity work that needed her attention. The alarm stopped. 30 seconds of silence. Then it started again. Mitchell's hand moved to his radio, muscle memory from 3 tours in Afghanistan. But something made him pause. The alarm was coming from the Queen's private study, the room where she kept her personal effects, her correspondence, her private papers, the room that even palace staff rarely entered. Protocol said, "Call it in." Report to the Central Security Desk. Wait for the fire brigade. But Mitchell had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, every instinct was telling him something wasn't right. Before we get into what happened next, make sure you're subscribed to Crown Watch. We bring you these stories every day at the same time. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, back to the story. Mitchell moved down the corridor, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. He'd learned to walk quietly in Helmand Province, where the sound of boots on sand could mean the difference between life and death. Here, in the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, that skill served a different purpose. The door to Camilla's study was closed, but light showed underneath. Not the warm yellow of lamps. Something flickering. Orange, red, the colour of fire. He reached for the door handle, then stopped. Voices. 2 of them. One was unmistakably Camilla. That crisp, upper-class accent that could freeze water at 20 paces. The other was younger, female, American maybe. "Just burn them all," Camilla was saying. "Every single one." "But, Your Majesty, some of these are quite old. They might be historically." "I don't care about historically. I care about privately. These are private letters. Mine to handle as I see fit." Mitchell's mind raced. Burning letters wasn't illegal. Royals had a right to privacy, especially with personal correspondence. But something about this felt wrong. The late-night timing, the urgency in Camilla's voice, the way she'd emphasized the word private. He knocked. 3 sharp raps. The military way. The voices stopped immediately. Footsteps. The door opened 6 inches, and Camilla's face appeared in the gap. She looked different without her usual makeup and styling. Older, harder. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him. "Sergeant, what are you doing here?" "Fire alarm, ma'am. Standard protocol requires a visual check of the premises." "I see. Well, as you can see, everything is fine. Just a small fire in the fireplace. Getting rid of some old papers. Nothing to concern yourself with." Mitchell could see past her into the room. The fireplace was indeed burning, flames higher than normal, but that wasn't what caught his attention. On the desk behind Camilla, he could see stacks of letters. Old letters, from the look of them. The paper was cream-coloured, heavy stock. The kind that royalty used for personal correspondence. More importantly, he could see the handwriting on the top letter. Even from 15 feet away, even in flickering firelight, he recognized it. He'd seen that handwriting before. Looped, elegant, distinctly old-fashioned. Queen Elizabeth's handwriting. Mitchell had served under Queen Elizabeth for the last year of her life. He'd stood guard outside her private rooms. He'd seen her write letters at her desk, that same careful script covering page after page. She'd written by hand until the very end, refusing to use email or dictation for anything personal. Those were the late Queen's letters, her personal correspondence. And Camilla was burning them. "Ma'am, I need to verify there's no fire hazard. Standard procedure." Camilla's expression hardened. "That won't be necessary, Sergeant. I've told you everything is fine. You may return to your post." It wasn't a request. It was an order. And technically, she had the authority to give it. But Mitchell had sworn an oath. Not to Camilla, not even to Charles, to the Crown itself, to the institution, to the legacy. Queen Elizabeth had been gone for just over 2 years, and already pieces of her history were going up in flames. "With respect, ma'am, I need to complete the safety check. The alarm went off twice. If I don't verify the cause, I'll have to file an incident report." He watched her face as he said it, saw the calculation in her eyes. She knew what an incident report meant. Questions, documentation, a paper trail that other people would see. "Very well, but make it quick." She stepped aside and Mitchell entered the room. The study was smaller than he'd expected, more intimate. Bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes and family photographs. A desk sat near the window, antique mahogany, the surface covered in those cream-coloured letters. The fireplace dominated the far wall, a proper Victorian fireplace with a marble surround. The flames were intense, too intense for just paper. Mitchell could smell something chemical. Accelerant, maybe. Someone wanted these letters to burn completely, to leave nothing behind. The young woman standing by the desk looked nervous. Early 30s, dressed in casual clothes, despite the hour. American accent, Mitchell confirmed. She had the look of an assistant or private secretary. Someone paid to ask no questions and follow orders. Mitchell moved to the fireplace. Professional, methodical. He could feel Camilla's eyes on him, watching his every move. The fire was contained, no danger of spreading. But as he looked into the flames, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Ashes, dozens of letters reduced to ash. But the fire was hot and fast, and some fragments hadn't burned completely. One piece, maybe 3 inches square, had fallen to the edge of the hearth. The paper was singed brown around the edges, but the handwriting was still visible. "Must never know the truth about that day. It would destroy everything we've worked for. I've kept this secret for 50 years, and I'll take it to my grave. Some things are better left buried." Queen Elizabeth's handwriting, Queen Elizabeth's words, and someone was destroying them. Mitchell's training took over. In Afghanistan, you learned to secure evidence before it disappeared. You learned to act fast when the situation demanded it. You learned that sometimes doing the right thing meant bending the rules. He bent down, pretending to examine the fireplace damper. His hand moved quickly, smoothly, pocketing the fragment of letter. Years of drill and discipline made the movement invisible. "Sergeant, are you quite finished?" Camilla's voice was ice. She knew he'd taken something, but she couldn't prove it. And more importantly, she couldn't make a scene about it without explaining what she was burning. Mitchell stood, faced her directly. "The fire is contained, ma'am. No structural hazard. But I do need to ask, what were you burning? Old correspondence, personal papers, nothing that concerns you." "Personal papers from Queen Elizabeth's collection?" The temperature in the room dropped to 10 degrees. The assistant took a step back, suddenly very interested in the bookshelf. Camilla's face went perfectly still, that royal mask of control sliding into place. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Sergeant." "I'm not implying anything, ma'am. I'm stating what I observed. Those letters on your desk, they're in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting. The fragments in the fireplace are the same. You're destroying the late Queen's personal correspondence. The late Queen's papers were left to the discretion of the King, and as his wife, I have every right." "Actually, ma'am, you don't." The words were out before Mitchell could stop them. But they were true, and he knew it. He'd been present at briefings after Queen Elizabeth's death. He knew how the transition of papers worked, how the Royal Archives handled historical documents. Queen Elizabeth's personal papers are the property of the Royal Collection. They're protected under the National Heritage Act. They can't be destroyed without approval from the Royal Archives Committee. Camilla's expression changed. Surprise, then calculation, then something close to anger. You seem remarkably well informed about archival law for a guard sergeant. I pay attention, ma'am, and I remember my briefings. She took a step toward him. It was meant to be intimidating, the kind of move that worked on most people. But Mitchell had stared down insurgents in Helmand. Our angry royal didn't rate. Here's what's going to happen, Camilla said, her voice soft and dangerous. You're going to forget what you saw here tonight. You're going to return to your post, complete your shift, and never mention this to anyone. In return, I won't have to report that you entered my private study without proper authorization. You gave me authorization when you let me in, ma'am. Did I? Or did you force your way in? It's your word against mine, Sergeant. And I think we both know whose word will be believed. Mitchell had been in this situation before. Different country, different circumstances, but the same basic dynamic. Power trying to intimidate truth, authority demanding silence. It never worked the way the powerful people thought it would. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the fireplace and stop burning those letters. You're giving me orders? I'm following protocol, ma'am. Those documents are Crown property. Destroying them is a criminal offense. The assistant finally spoke, her American accent stronger with stress. Your Majesty, maybe we should... Be quiet, Jennifer. Camilla turned back to Mitchell. Her face had gone cold, all pretense of civility gone. This was the woman behind the public smile, the one who'd climbed from scandal to crown. You're making a terrible mistake, Sergeant. I could have you dismissed before sunrise. Stripped of rank, thrown out of service, your military career destroyed. Is that really what you want? Mitchell thought about his oath, about Queen Elizabeth, who'd treated her guards with kindness and respect, about the fragments of letters in the fireplace, secrets burning to ash, about the letter fragment in his pocket, the one that talked about truth and graves and things better left buried. Ma'am, I need you to step away from the fireplace, now. For a long moment, nobody moved. Mitchell could hear the clock on the mantelpiece ticking, each second impossibly loud. The fire crackled. Outside, somewhere in the palace, he heard footsteps. The changing of the guard, midnight watch becoming morning watch. Camilla smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Jennifer, throw the rest into the fire. The assistant hesitated. Your Majesty, he said. I don't care what he said. Do it. Jennifer moved toward the desk, reaching for the stack of letters. Mitchell had maybe 3 seconds to decide. Stop her physically, which would be assault on a civilian in the Queen's presence. Let it happen, which would make him complicit in destroying Crown property. Or find another option. He pulled out his radio. This is Mitchell, East Wing. I need immediate assistance in Queen Camilla's study. Suspected destruction of protected documents. Send senior command and request Metropolitan Police Liaison. The radio crackled. Say again, Mitchell? You heard me correctly. I need command here now. Camilla lunged for the fireplace. Not dignified, not royal, desperate. She grabbed a handful of letters from the desk and threw them into the flames. They caught immediately, that chemical accelerant doing its work. Mitchell moved, not to stop her, that would be assault, but to the desk, placing himself between the remaining letters and the fireplace. About 30 letters left. Maybe a third of what had been here originally, judging by the ash. Stand aside, Camilla hissed. I can't do that, ma'am. That's a direct order, and I'm refusing it. You can file a complaint with my commanding officer. He should be here in about 2 minutes. They stood there, frozen in tableau. Mitchell at the desk, Camilla by the fireplace, her hands literally dirty with ash. Jennifer backed against the wall, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. Footsteps in the corridor. Running. The door burst open, and Captain Richard Wells entered, out of breath, his uniform jacket buttoned wrong like he'd dressed in a hurry. "Mitchell, what the hell?" He stopped, taking in the scene. The burning fireplace, the letters. Camilla's ash-stained hands. "Your Majesty, Captain Wells, perfect timing. Your sergeant here has just assaulted me in my own study." Wells looked at Mitchell, one eyebrow raised. They'd served together in Iraq years ago. He knew Mitchell didn't lie, didn't exaggerate, didn't make mistakes. "Sergeant, Queen Camilla was burning documents from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection, sir. Protected documents under the National Heritage Act. I intervened to preserve what remained." Wells's expression didn't change, but Mitchell saw the tightening around his eyes. This was bad. This was political. This was the kind of situation that could end careers. "Your Majesty, I'm going to need you to explain what's happening here. I don't answer to you, Captain." "No, ma'am, you don't. But those letters are Crown property. If they're being destroyed illegally, I have a duty to investigate." Camilla drew herself up to full height. Even covered in ash, even caught red-handed, she radiated authority. It was impressive, Mitchell had to admit. Years of practice playing the royal role. "These are my late mother-in-law's private papers, personal correspondence, not historical documents. I'm exercising my right to protect the family's privacy." "Do you have written authorization from the Royal Archives Committee?" "I don't need authorization. I'm the Queen Consort." "That's not how it works, ma'am." The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Princess Anne stood there, still in riding clothes, her silver hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked like she'd come straight from the stables at her country estate. She looked furious. "Aunt Anne," Camilla said, recovering quickly, "this is a private matter. Nothing involving my mother's papers is private. Not from me." Anne walked into the room, her boots clicking on the hardwood floor. She moved past Mitchell to the desk, looking at the remaining letters. Her face went white. "These are from the blue box," she said quietly. "Mother's personal collection. The letters she specifically requested be preserved." "I'm protecting the family," Camilla said. "Some of these letters contain sensitive—" "I don't care what they contain. They're not yours to burn." Anne picked up one of the letters, handling it with the reverence of someone touching something sacred. Mitchell watched her read, saw her lips thin into a hard line. "This is about Diana," Anne said. "Mother wrote this after Diana died, about her regrets, about things she wished she'd done differently." She looked at Camilla. "You're destroying evidence of my mother's conscience." "I'm destroying scandal," Camilla shot back. "Do you have any idea what some of these letters say? About the family? About Charles? About me? I don't care. They're history. They're truth. And you have no right." Anne turned to Wells. "Captain, I want every remaining letter secured. I want the fireplace examined for fragments. I want a full investigation into how this happened." "Yes, ma'am. And I want her arrested." Silence. Even the fire seemed to quiet. "Anne, you're being dramatic," Camilla said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "Am I? You've destroyed Crown property. You've violated the National Heritage Act. Captain Wells, what's the penalty for that?" Wells cleared his throat. "Up to 7 years imprisonment, ma'am, plus unlimited fines." Camilla laughed, but it came out shrill. "You can't arrest the Queen Consort." "Actually," Anne said, "we can. The Crown Proceedings Act makes it quite clear. No one is above the law, not even you." Mitchell watched it all unfold with a sense of unreality. 2 hours ago, he'd been walking his normal patrol route. Now he was watching a queen get threatened with arrest by a princess. Anne turned to him. "Sergeant Mitchell, is it?" "Yes, ma'am." "You stopped this?" "I tried, ma'am. She'd already burned about 70 letters before I arrived." Anne's jaw tightened. 70. My mother's words. Gone. She looked back at Camilla. "What were you so afraid of?" "I wasn't afraid. I was being practical." "You were being selfish. These letters weren't about you. They were about history. About a woman who served this country for 70 years and wanted her thoughts preserved. Some of her thoughts would destroy the monarchy. Then maybe we deserve to be destroyed." The words hung in the air. Mitchell had never heard a royal say something like that before. The idea that maybe the institution wasn't worth protecting at any cost. That truth might matter more than image. Anne turned to Jennifer, who'd been trying to blend into the wallpaper. "You, what's your name?" "Jennifer Hartley, ma'am. I'm Her Majesty's private secretary." "Did you know these were protected documents?" Jennifer's face crumbled. I had concerns, but Her Majesty assured me. That's a yes or no question." "Yes, ma'am. I knew." "Then you're complicit. Captain Wells, I want her taken into custody as well." "Anne, this is absurd," Camilla said. "You can't." "I can, and I will. My mother spent her entire life building a legacy. You've spent 2 years trying to erase the parts you don't like. Well, it ends now." Anne pulled out her phone. It was a jarring sight. Princess Royal in riding boots, covered in stable dust, making calls at 4 in the morning to wake up lawyers and archivists and police. Mitchell stood by the desk, guarding the remaining letters. He could see the writing on them now, close up. Queen Elizabeth's distinctive hand covering page after page. Letters to friends, to family, to herself maybe. Private thoughts that she'd wanted preserved, that she'd trusted to the archives. One letter caught his eye. It was addressed to Charles, dated just weeks before she died. "My dearest son, I know the path ahead will be difficult. I know there will be pressure to rewrite history, to hide uncomfortable truths. But I beg you, don't let them. The monarchy survives not through perfection, but through honesty. We've made mistakes. I've made mistakes. Let them be known. Let them be learned from. That's the only way forward." Mitchell felt something in his chest tighten. Queen Elizabeth had known. She'd known exactly what would happen after she died. The pressure to sanitize, to hide, to burn. And she'd tried to prevent it. He'd failed her. 70 letters gone. 70 pieces of history turned to ash. But 30 remained. That had to count for something. The next 2 hours were chaos. Metropolitan Police arrived, led by Inspector Sarah Chen, who'd been the palace liaison for 6 years. She took statements from everyone, examined the fireplace, photographed the remaining letters and the fragments Mitchell had saved. Dr. Margaret Thornton from the Royal Archives appeared at 5 a.m., looking like she'd thrown on whatever clothes were handy. She examined the letters with shaking hands, tears in her eyes. "These are irreplaceable," she kept saying. "Irreplaceable." King Charles arrived at 6, still in pajamas under a coat. He looked at the scene, the police, the letters, Anne standing guard like a general, Camilla sitting in a chair with a lawyer beside her, and his face went grey. "What have you done?" he asked Camilla. "I was protecting you." "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't have to ask. I know what those letters said about me, about us, about Diana. I wasn't going to let. They were my mother's words, not yours to destroy." It was the first time Mitchell had ever heard Charles speak to Camilla with genuine anger, the first crack in their united front. Anne briefed him quickly, efficiently. Charles listened, his face getting tighter with each sentence. When she finished, he looked at Mitchell. "You stopped this?" "I tried, sir. I was too late for most of them. But not all. Thank you, Sergeant." 2 simple words, but coming from the king, in front of everyone. They meant something. Charles turned to Inspector Chen. What are the charges? Destruction of protected documents, sir. Violation of the National Heritage Act. Possible charges of theft, depending on how the letters were obtained. We're still investigating. And the penalties? Significant, sir. Up to 7 years imprisonment. Charles looked at Camilla. Really looked at her, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. I can't protect you from this, he said, quietly. You're the king. Which means I have to uphold the law, even when it's family. The arrest was handled quietly. No handcuffs, no perp walk. Camilla and Jennifer were escorted to separate cars, driven to a private facility for processing. The palace press office went into overdrive, preparing statements, controlling the narrative. But some things couldn't be controlled. Mitchell was there when Dr. Thornton examined the letter fragment he'd saved from the fireplace. The one about secrets and graves and truth. She read it 3 times, then looked up at him. Do you know what this is about? No, ma'am. Neither do I, but we're going to find out. She handled the fragment like it was made of glass. The Queen mentioned that day multiple times in her later letters. We've never known what she meant. This might be the key. The fragments from the fireplace yielded more clues, words and phrases that didn't burn completely. Thornton and her team spent weeks piecing them together, matching handwriting, carbon dating paper, cross-referencing dates with historical records. What they found changed everything. Queen Elizabeth had kept a secret, a big one. Something about the family's German ancestry, about documents hidden during World War II, about relationships that would have shocked the public. The letters weren't scandalous in the tabloid sense. No affairs, no illegitimate children. But they were honest, painfully, unflinchingly honest about the compromises and choices and moral grey areas that came with being royal. They were the kind of letters that made the monarchy human, fallible, real. And Camilla had tried to burn them because she was afraid of human and fallible and real. The trial was private, held in a closed courtroom with no press allowed. But word leaked, as it always does. Camilla was found guilty on 3 counts of destruction of protected documents. The sentence was suspended. No jail time, but heavy fines and 2 years probation. More importantly, her title was reviewed. She remained married to Charles, but the Queen Consort designation was quietly dropped from official documents. The public fallout was swift. Polls showed massive drops in Camilla's approval ratings. Support for the monarchy itself took a hit. But something interesting happened. When the Royal Archives released some of the surviving letters, the ones Queen Elizabeth had specifically marked for public viewing, people responded with unexpected warmth. They loved the honesty, the vulnerability, the sense that Queen Elizabeth had been a real person with doubts and regrets and hopes. It made her more relatable, more human, more beloved. The letters that Camilla had tried to destroy to protect the monarchy's image ended up strengthening it. Mitchell was called to Anne's office 6 weeks after that night. He expected a commendation, maybe a promotion. What he got was different. Sit down, Sergeant. He sat. Anne's office was practical, no frills, photos of horses on the walls, military medals in a simple frame. You put your career on the line that night, Anne said. You went against the Queen Consort. That took courage. I was following my oath, ma'am. Your oath is to the crown. Technically, Camilla is part of that. My oath is to the institution, to the legacy, not to any one person. Anne smiled. It was the first time Mitchell had seen her smile. My mother would have liked you. She valued people who understood the difference. She pushed a file across the desk. I'm recommending you for the Queen's Gallantry Medal, for protecting Crown property under pressure. The committee will approve it. That's not necessary, ma'am. It's necessary for the institution to acknowledge when someone does the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Mitchell took the file. Inside was the recommendation, already signed by Anne and countersigned by King Charles. "There's something else," Anne said. "The Royal Archives is creating a new position, guardian of historical documents, someone to ensure this never happens again, someone with military training and historical knowledge, someone who understands what's worth protecting." Mitchell looked up sharply. "Ma'am, the pay is better than your current position. The hours are terrible. You'd be working directly with Dr. Thornton and her team, and you'd have the authority to stop anyone, and I mean anyone, from destroying Crown property, including royals, especially royals." It was a promotion, but more than that, it was a mission, a purpose. Exactly what Mitchell had joined the military to find. "I accept." "Good. You start next month. Use the time to read everything you can about royal archives and historical preservation. Thornton will bury you in books." Mitchell stood, saluted. Anne returned it crisply. "One more thing, Sergeant. The letter fragment you saved, the one about secrets. We've traced it, cross-referenced it with other documents. We know what my mother was talking about now." "What was it?" Anne's expression went carefully neutral. "That's classified, but I can tell you this. My mother was right to want it preserved. Some truths need to see light, even if they're uncomfortable. You helped make that possible." Mitchell left the palace that day feeling something he hadn't felt since his last tour in Afghanistan. Purpose, direction, the sense that what he did mattered. The Royal Guards weren't just ceremonial, they were protectors, not just of people, but of history, of truth, of the things that mattered, even when powerful people wanted them hidden. 3 months later, Mitchell started his new position. His first task was cataloguing the surviving letters from Queen Elizabeth's collection. 27 letters had been saved from the fire. Combined with the fragments and partial burns, they'd recovered about 40% of the original collection. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Dr. Thornton worked beside him, teaching him how to handle old documents, how to read faded ink, how to recognize when something was historically significant. She was patient, knowledgeable, passionate about preservation. "Every letter tells a story," she said, one day, holding up a page covered in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting. "Every word is a piece of someone's life, their thoughts, their heart. When we destroy these, we don't just lose paper, we lose connection to the past. We lose understanding." Mitchell thought about Camilla, so afraid of what those letters revealed that she'd burned them in the middle of the night, so focused on image and control that she'd destroyed irreplaceable history. And he thought about Princess Anne, who'd understood that truth mattered more than comfort, that honesty was stronger than pretense, that the monarchy survived not by hiding its flaws, but by acknowledging them. The surviving letters were eventually put on public display at the Royal Archives, with explanatory text written by Dr. Thornton. Thousands of people came to see them. They lined up for hours, waiting patiently to read Queen Elizabeth's words. Mitchell walked through the exhibit on opening day, watching people's faces as they read. Some cried, some smiled. All of them seemed to connect with the woman behind the crown in a way they never had before. That's what Camilla had tried to destroy. Not scandal, not secrets, connection, understanding, truth. Royal Guards aren't just ceremonial, they're the last line of defense for a nation's history and traditions. When everyone else looks away, they keep watching. When everyone else stays silent, they speak up. When powerful people try to rewrite the past, guards stand in the way and say no. Mitchell had done that. One guard, one night, one choice. It hadn't saved everything. 70 letters were still gone, turned to ash, lost forever. But 30 remained, and sometimes 30 is enough to tell the truth. If this story showed you something about the Royal Guards you didn't know, hit that subscribe button. We share these stories every day at the same time. Tomorrow, We'll tell you about what happened when Princess Charlotte witnessed Camilla destroying evidence from Diana's car crash. The confrontation will shock you. Drop a comment and let us know. Should Camilla face criminal charges? We'll see you tomorrow.